welcome to another episode of Early Bird Anime with Meg and Dan.
I'm Meg.
And I am Dan. And today you gotta tell those kaiju to step off, because there's a new monster in town. And when I say monster, I mean with the little parenthesis with the S in it, because sometimes there's more of them. Because today, we're gonna dip our little Ramblepants, the little Ramble waders, if you will, into the little depths of the ocean. The little depths of
The
the
little
ocean. That's
depths.
right. And because we watched Gyo, Tokyo Fish Attack, the wonderful film that I do not regret watching at all by any means, which is actually a true statement. Meg, would you care to tell us about the little background information, tidbits, and whatnots?
But of course, so the Japanese title of Gyo is Gyo Ugomeku Bukimi, which literally translates to roughly fish, the eerie wriggle. And the English title was changed to Tokyo Fish Attack. So the animation was based on a 2-volume horror sci-fi manga by Ito Junji, who has also done such works as Uzumaki and Tomie. Ito is inspired by such creators as Tsutsui Yasutaka, who is the author of light novels like Paprika and the Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which I was a little surprised by, and also by H.P. Lovecraft, which I was not quite so surprised by. And he was also apparently a collaborator with Guillermo del Toro and Kojima Hideo on the Silent Hills video game that was cancelled by Konami. Ito's themes often include body horror, societal breakdowns, the inevitability of one's own mortality. You can see a lot of that in this particular work. The manga ran from 2001 to 2002 and was animated into a 71-minute OVA by Studio Ufotable in 2012. Ufotable has also done anime like Fate Zero and also the Tales of Zestiria anime that is currently airing. In North America, the manga was released by Viz Media and the OVA by Aniplex USA. It was originally intended to be 30 minutes, but during production it kind of evolved into a longer thing, and there were a lot of changes between the animation and the manga. For example, the protagonist in the manga was Tadashi, and it became Kaori in the animation. We'll get into a brief description of who's who in a minute. The manga got praised for the grotesque art and the strange relationship between Kaori and Tadashi, and on my anime list it has around 15,000 ratings, averaging around 5.7 out of 10. So Daniel, why don't you give us a quick summary of the plot of this animation, if you would?
I would love to, but first I'd just like to say I didn't know this guy made Paprika. Paprika's my favorite family member in Blue's Clues. So this is the story of Kaori and her friends, who whatever, we'll talk about that later. Aki and Erika, and they're visiting Okinawa to celebrate their college graduation, their first taste of freedom. Kaori's fiance, Tadashi, has an uncle who lets them use his summer house, but when they arrive, they find strange creatures walking around in their house, particularly a dead fish on mechanical spider legs, it appears. And then the next day, after disposing of that creature, no joke, a freaking shark on the exact same thing crashes through the cabin window and starts wreaking havoc. They somehow kill that thing, but they soon learn that it is not only Okinawa and their little cabin that's been infested with these vermin, but all of Tokyo, and probably all of Japan too, if I had to guess. But anyway, Kaori's fiance Tadashi is still in the city, and she wants to make it back to him, which sets us off on her trek into the city, where she meets Shirakawa, a reporter of sorts, who decides to accompany her when his boss sends him a picture of a prominent scientist standing beside Tadashi, his uncle, who lent them the summer home, cabin, whatever you want to call it. They venture into Tokyo despite deadly viruses turning people into bloated green fart zombies. That's right, fart zombies. And this happens when you get poked by the fish spider leg. And for real, this is a thing that happens.
Yep, I can confirm.
What happened? Why would you do this to me? No, I'm joking. I actually was I wanted to be really into it, but Meg, what were your initial thoughts?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I guess. Well. I've seen some of Ito's works in the bookstores, and he has really good art. So I think first off, I want to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that his art style didn't really carry over into this adaptation. Like, the character designs were all really generic. So you had like generic anime characters and then like really clunky, ugly CG fish.
Oh, it just was like such an eyesore.
It was kind of a funny clash, but also it kind of
It wasn't intentional.
any contextual, I guess, seriousness that you might have been able to take from the manga by it having a good art style was completely lost in this animation. And
Yeah.
I actually have kind of skimmed through the first couple chapters of this manga before, and I noticed the big difference. Like, in the manga, Kaori and Tadashi were the ones visiting Okinawa, and Kaori was like acting like a snob, and Tadashi was kind of a little bit of a jerk, from what I remember. I could be misremembering. But in this, like, Kaori was such a bland, like, goody two shoes and stuff. I guess the only good thing about her was that she actually took initiative. So like her friends would be squabbling, like, I don't want to touch it, you touch it. No, I don't want to touch it, you touch it. And Kaori was just like, guys, I'll get it.
I'll open the window.
Yeah,
It's
like,
I agree. It's like, yeah, she's really the only character with initiative, but I just don't care.
yeah, because we had no reason to care.
I don't care. Although her tragic backstory of smelling a really dead guy was
That could have been phrased a little bit better.
no, it
Her
was
her tragic
perfect.
backstory of going around and sniffing corpses.
Well, it was just apparently it's a big problem over there where they're just like, someone dies and it smells bad for the rest of the summer and then I can't go to the beach. All right, you gotta get some Febreze in your life. Anyway, I just did not care about her.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I didn't really care about anybody. First of all, it's like, why are these people friends?
I cared about
Because
the fish.
they don't seem to get along, much less
They're horrible
like each
people.
other.
They're all horrible people.
Yeah, like one of them is a whiny asshole. One of them is just like a doormat who's on the verge of snapping, and then you have Kaori who's just
Like
bland.
It's like, why are you? You exist for no reason.
You
All three
exist
of
to
you.
be the main character, but
But
you
you're not much
fail
more
in
than that.
generating any kind of real sympathy for you.
Yeah. And the best character, besides the shark on spider legs, is Tadashi's uncle, who is like
He's a mad scientist.
literally a mad scientist who has this epitaph, and then like 3 seconds later is stabbed in the chest.
Yeah. He entered the scene and just started gesturing dramatically and doing all these poses, and I
And
was like,
he's got the hair of like a floppy-eared cocker spaniel to me, so it just added more
I
comedy
feel
to it.
like that was funny because it was like the only really self-aware moment.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I wanted to be into this because it to me looked like a B movie.
Right.
And when you discuss bad movies with people, they don't. Sometimes I think people don't get it. Like I have a lot of friends, and myself included, we love the movie Airplane. We think Airplane's an amazing movie. And then I have other friends who are like, "Oh, that Airplane movie, it's funny because it's bad." And I'm like, "No, you don't get it." I'm glad you get laughter out of it, but it's not a bad movie. It's a spoof. Or then you watch a movie like The Room, which I have looking at me right now. Let me get that out of here.
Oh
But
boy.
a movie like The Room where people are like confused by it, but I'm like, that's the best kind of bad movie. The one that tried really hard to be a serious one, but it just failed horribly. And this one sort of rides it a little bit both ways, because I think it tries to take itself very serious, but the plot itself is so ridiculous that I wish it focused more on the ridiculous aspect of fish on stilts coming in. Like I thought it was gonna be like a cabin in the woods sort of movie where these kids were gonna have to be like, how the fuck are we gonna get out of this cabin?
Right.
And then they add some more things like, oh, if you get stabbed or like scratched, you turn into like a green necrid gas fart monster. I'm like, oh, okay, that raises the stakes a little bit. I'm kind of not upset, but I'm a little disappointed it's not about the fish anymore, because I really liked
Right.
that it was about the fish, but I could live with it. And then slowly it seems to divert more into like the city, and then it's all about humanity, and then about, oh well, my boyfriend, I know he's really in there, he's my only reason to go on. I'm like, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
I want to see people running away from fish on robot legs. Like they could have still had the mad scientist plot, but it wasn't about people running away from fish anymore.
Right.
So my enjoyment of it was waning towards the end. I'd say like The best part was probably before the two girls left the cabin.
Right. I think it seemed really confused in what it was trying to accomplish,
Yeah, I
because you
agree.
had that you had that kind of horror aspect with the fish, and then you had the other stuff with the fart zombies
Like they
and
were
like
literally like
society
spreading their
breaking
butt
down.
cheeks and they were farting, and it's like how serious of an issue? It's like no, you guys are farting into the air, and everyone's like, oh god, it stinks so bad. It's like you
But
guys are
then
farting.
But then you had like the mad scientist subplot, and there was some kind of government conspiracy, like about
Yeah.
engineering the fish as some bioweapon that was discarded. And then it was like, no, actually, the virus is an alien. It's from space. It's not of this earth, and it's sentient.
Like it needed to draw its scope back just a little bit.
Right, and like there was this scene where the mad scientist was, he had been stabbed, and he was like, "I'm gonna die," but
Take
to
me
the
to
reporter guy, "Take me
X.
to this place that the audience never found out what that place was." All of a sudden, he was just outside being helped into this building as like these giant steel doors closed on him, and he was like, "I have to see the truth with my own eyes." And then he doesn't come back until the very end of the movie, where he turned into like a monster
bird.
pterodactyl or something.
Like
And
a
I was
Leonardo
like,
da Vinci creature.
what? Like,
I
it
wasn't
didn't
like my
really
mind
make
wasn't blown
sense.
at that. I was like, I was kind of expecting this, but my question was, how come he got to turn into a flying one?
Yeah.
Because that was also not set up. And I'm like,
And
that would've
there
been
was
cool.
like this weird circus bit in the middle that came out
Yeah,
of nowhere and
might
didn't
as well have not
contribute
been in the
anything
movie.
to the plot, and just brought a whole other set of questions up, like how did this person have time to prepare this act with these fart zombies that like literally just started happening? How do you know all this? Like, I guess you're not the person who created it, because you're just a random person, and apparently this thing comes from space. Like in H.P. Lovecraft, The Color Out of Space, which was about a sentient gas cloud that killed stuff, and was also one of my least favorite Lovecraft stories in that anthology.
Exactly. But like the thing for me was the movie's only an hour and 10 minutes, but I get the feeling that so much happens, and then I kind of I'm looking around. I'm like, only 1 or 2 days have really passed, and it just seems like too much has happened
Mm-hmm.
to only be in 2 days. Like the way everyone is reacting, and I think it's mostly because some of the fish monsters people are like kind of okay with,
Mm-hmm.
and then other ones they have like zero tolerance for. So I just got this vibe of like, oh, they're learning to live with the fish, but it's really only been like a couple hours
Right.
since the initial fish attack.
Oh, well, you gotta go to the grocery store. You gotta go to the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, you gotta get your yeah. Anyway, the movie I thought was going to be a horror movie, like a traditional horror movie, because of the way the characters were set up too. Because you have the slutty girl who I'm like, okay, she's gonna die first, and you have the fat girl who I'm like, she's gonna slow down and probably get eaten, and then they'll be like, oh, moral of the story is don't be fat,
And don't be a slut.
but I mean, oh yeah, don't be a slut, don't be anything, and it's still maintained, that, but in a really weird like execution of it.
Yeah, I was watching and I was kind of like, is there supposed to be some kind of commentary going on here? And I don't know, maybe that's just giving this particular adaptation too much credit. Like, I've heard that the author of the manga is actually good at layering commentary
Social
and stuff into
commentary.
his works. But because the adaptation has changed so drastically,
Well, it's
I
also
I don't really
a
know.
movie about fish and fart zombies, so I'm gonna say it's hard to try to find a good area to put in. Like, all right, how do I tell people about eating healthily in between the scene where the guy gets eaten by the shark and the scene where the girls fart? Toughy, but it's like I don't think it was a social commentary. I think it was just tropes that were used because in those sorts of genres of horror, you always have a slutty character, and you always have a fat character, and you always have the straight and narrow character, and you always have like the guide character. I think they were just characters because you have to have them that way. That was what I got. And in a way, like that could be a criticism, I think it is, but at the same time, I was looking forward to seeing how this movie would play around with them because it's about fish and fart zombies.
Right. I don't know, maybe, but like, I think the way they were played out was the reason I was confused by it, because it didn't seem like just a straight up
No,
thing
yeah,
of a trope.
no one was set up well either. Is the problem?
It
I
wasn't
think.
like, here's the slutty girl and she's bad because she has sex. It was like, here's the slutty girl, but she's bad because she's actually a terrible person,
Yeah,
and who
but you
like
could say the same
abuses
thing
this
about the
girl.
fat girl too.
Yeah, like she's at the end of her rope, but she's also a bad person. Basically, everybody was a terrible person except for
Yeah.
Kaori and probably Tadashi, who were just super boring.
I'd say they're like they're neutral. They're like in Futurama, the gray people from the neutral planet, where they don't lean either way, and they're just incredibly bland and boring.
Yeah, just so generic.
And then some scenes just don't make sense. Like the one scene where I think the shark is coming in, and the slutty girl's like, "Somebody help me!" And then the fat girl's just like sitting there, like, no." And I'm like, "Okay, she's under a lot of stress. Of course, this is something that happens." And then during the whole commotion, like everyone's trying to scatter away, and then out of nowhere, the fat girl just grabs the slutty girl's foot and is just like, "I got you." I'm like, what?
Yeah, that
I'm
was kind
thinking
of
like,
weird.
is she trying to help out in her own weird way, or is she just an
Yeah.
idiot? And the answer is she's just an idiot, because then that girl kicks her in the face. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing?
I don't
Shark's
even know.
attacking me!" And then later on, it's like a role reversal where the slutty girl's like turning into a fart zombie, and then the fat girl turns into some sort of like split personality, like serial killer, where she's like, "You always thought I liked you, but in fact, you were a terrible person." I'm like, where is this coming from? No one is set up properly.
See, that made sense to me, kind of seeing how
It
close to snapping she was, and also given like the horrible stress of the situation, but it wasn't effective. They had these moments that were supposed to be emotional, like Kaori revealing her tragic backstory, or breaking down in the middle of the street and crying because a bunch of guys in hazmat suits won't let her pass and she just really wants to see Tadashi. Or when Aki finally snapped and was getting her revenge on Erika, like, it made sense as to why these things were happening when you looked at it logically, but it didn't have the impact because there were no kinds of real
Yeah,
ties to the characters. Like,
like logically, this would have happened.
and the result was that it was either funny or it was just really awkward. Like when Kaori suddenly went into her tragic backstory, Tadashi's like, "Hey, what do you think of this sound recording?" And she's like, "Oh, it's nice, I guess. But it makes me sad because my dad died." And it was like, okay, that's a really funny execution of the scene. But then when she broke down crying in the street, I was just like, this is really awkward.
It's really awkward because, like, I don't know if it was just the voice actress, but the way she cried sounded like a kid who was just told, "No, you can't have that toy." And she's like, "But I want to see him."
The voice acting, I mean, I'm not the best judge of this because it's in Japanese, but I do know some Japanese, and
Don't say some. Don't say some.
I know a decent amount of Japanese, and the voice acting for a lot of these characters were really stiff. Like Tadashi in particular was really clipped and like
Yeah,
stilted and really awkward
I could,
sounding. I don't know if
I
you
could
were
tell
able to
that.
pick up on those things, but
To me, I couldn't really pick it up, and part of the reason I like foreign movies sometimes is because I don't have to focus on the acting, because I have to read most of it. But I can still tell when someone's probably not being a good actor, just not as much as if it were in the English language. But there were a couple of times where I was just like, whatever. But
yeah.
one of those scenes was when she broke down crying. Or I think another scene was like when they went into the underground basement and they found Tadashi all hooked up to the machine. I forget exactly what, but there's some delivery of a line that I was like, oh, all right. And then the uncle just completely hammed it up. He was like, "I have created a robot."
Yeah, look how well it moves.
That was a scene that for whatever reason was played up as pretty comical, just the way its execution, the way the character moved, and all the
Yeah.
gestures he was making. But the rest of the movie is so like personalityless.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you can see the sharks are running through the street.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I think our verdict is that it wasn't really a very good movie.
It could have been. I wanted to be into it.
I think it would have been more fun to watch with a friend. I watched it by myself.
Yeah, I'd like to see another pass at it. I think if they readapt it,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see it because, I mean, from what you told me of the manga, it sounds like there's some more interesting things going on. But I don't even care if they just made a fun movie about fish zombies, I'd be okay. And they treated it like a movie with fish zombies.
It does make me a little curious about the manga. I kind of actually want to read it and read through it fully and pay attention to it, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, is the manga really better? I don't know. Maybe I'll find out someday.
I think regardless, it would give me a good laugh. Like, this movie made me laugh a pretty good amount. Like, the first time you see, like, people are just hanging out in this bedroom and they're like, man, what about that thing we saw the other day? And then you just see a shark on stilts peeping around the corner. Like, he's like, I'm trying really hard to be sneaky. And he's like,
oh my god, that was hilarious.
I looked away for a second and I came back. I'm like, there's a freaking shark!
Or when Kaori, like, ties the first fish up in, like, a plastic bag and puts it outside in the trash can. And then she's, like, up on the balcony, and the bag had, like, filled up with the gases.
The gas, yeah.
And so she's sitting on the balcony, and you just see this inflated plastic bag with the dead fish in it just kind of floating whimsically behind her. I laughed at that, too. Like, it had funny moments. Anyway.
But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up, I think, for Gyo.
Yeah, I think so.
It was not a very good movie, but
nope.
Maybe it'd be fun to have like a drinking game anytime someone farted. I don't know.
I think you would have to just be taking one very long, constant drink by the end of the movie.
Or one really long fart. You never know. But anyway, if you like us, give us a like. And if you think perhaps we missed something, leave a comment. And if you think we were the greatest people on Earth, the princes of the universe of all, you can subscribe.
And remember, smells go away sooner or later.
We are the Discount Ramblepants and Ramble Waiters.
Thanks for listening.
Ramble. Okay, goodbye.